The man sitting in my chair raised his glass before I could say a word. "To growth," he said. Mallory laughed like he'd just told the joke of the century. She didn't even look at me. There were 12 seats at that table. 11 were filled. Mine, the one at the end with the little wrapped box and the blue envelope that said Curtis in her handwriting, was already taken. By him. He didn't flinch. Not when I walked in. Not when I froze by the hostess stand like I'd been punched. He sat back like he owned the room, like he belonged next to my wife, like the birthday cake waiting near the bar had his name written on it. Mallory leaned toward him, whispered something, smiled. I stayed frozen. I didn't move forward. I didn't turn around. I just stood there and watched, my own birthday dinner unfolding without me. I don't know how long I stayed there before anyone noticed. Maybe a minute. Maybe 5. One of our friends, Trey, I think, waved me over with that awkward half-smile people where when they know something's wrong but they've decided to pretend it's not. I walked. Every step to the table felt like a mile. My legs were stiff. My chest, numb. Mallory finally stood when I reached them. She kissed my cheek like nothing was off. Like there wasn't a stranger wearing my seat and drinking my wine. "This is Evan," she said casually. "You've heard about him." I hadn't. Not once. Evan didn't stand. Just reached out his hand like we were long-lost college roommates. "Hey man. Big day. Big night." I looked at him. I looked at her. Something shifted. I looked down at the plate in front of him. Medium rare steak, my favorite. Same garlic mashed potatoes I always get. Even the water had no ice, just how I order it. She didn't just bring him. She replaced me. "I'll be back," I said. My voice cracked, but no one noticed. Or maybe they did and chose not to care. I turned around, and I walked out the back entrance, past the kitchen, past the delivery guys unloading crates of overpriced wine, past the alley where 2 servers were smoking in silence. I walked 4 blocks before I realized I left my phone on the table. I didn't go back for it. I didn't go back for anything. I kept walking, past the restaurants with their glowing outdoor heaters and fake laughter spilling out onto the sidewalks. Past the bookstore I always meant to go into but never did. Past a couple arguing outside a bar where the neon sign flickered the word love like a cruel joke. No one came after me. No footsteps behind me. No, "Wait, Curtis." No running in heels. No friends texting, "Where'd you go, man?" I might as well have vanished into the air, and maybe that was the first moment I realized just how easy I was to erase. I ducked into a 24-hour diner 4 blocks away, sat in a booth by the window, ordered black coffee I didn't want, just to look like I belonged. My reflection in the window looked like someone else, pale, confused, pathetic. The kind of guy people forget is even in the room. I stared at the sugar packets longer than I want to admit. And then it hit me. She planned this. The dinner. The setup. The chair. Everything. That man, Evan, he didn't just randomly show up and join us. That was her plan from the beginning. The same way she bought my favorite dessert, ordered my usual drink, and left my name on the table, she made it look like it was still my night while handing it over to him. It was worse than cheating. It was a transfer of ownership. I didn't cry. Not then. I sat there trying to piece it together. How long it had been going on, what signs I missed when the shift happened. She used to smile when I walked into a room. Lately, she looked like she'd just smelled sour milk. I thought it was stress. Work. Hormones. I blamed everything but her. And now, the realization hit me like a slap in the face. She didn't respect me anymore. Maybe she hadn't for a long time. The waitress came by. Her name tag said Shirley. She had a tired voice and kind eyes. Asked if I wanted anything else. I think she noticed something in my face, something broken. She didn't press. Just topped off the coffee and left me alone. That was the first kindness I got all night. I sat there for an hour. Still, no messages. No missed calls. No one wondering where I went. My phone, wallet, jacket, all back at the table with people who pretended to care about me for years. I wondered if they even noticed I was gone. And then, I did something I've never done before. I stood up, walked into the restroom, and stared at myself in the mirror for a long time. I looked awful. Puffy eyes. Neck flushed. Shirt wrinkled from how tightly I'd been clenching my fists. Then, without thinking, I reached into my pocket. Keys. That's all I had. No phone. No money. Just keys. I left the diner, walked 3 blocks to the parking lot behind the old post office where I'd parked earlier, got into my car, and drove. Not home. Not to my brother's place. Not even to a motel. I just drove. I turned off my phone's location the moment I got home from work earlier. Not because I was planning anything, but because I didn't want her tracking me anymore. Funny how that one paranoid thought ended up being the smartest thing I did all week. By the time midnight hit, I was crossing the state line into Georgia. No destination, just highway and rage. She didn't just break me. She made me invisible. And I was about to show her what it felt like when the one man she thought would never leave simply disappeared. By the time the sun cracked open over the horizon, I was somewhere past Macon, Georgia. I hadn't spoken a single word. Just 180 miles of silence, broken only by the thrum of the tires and the occasional slap of a bug on the windshield. The gas light had come on twice. I ignored it the first time. The second time, I coasted into a small town station that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since 1997. The clerk didn't ask questions. I probably looked like a guy who'd just lost everything, or gave it all up. Same thing, really. I filled the tank, bought a toothbrush and a bottle of water, then sat in the car for another hour just watching people come and go. A woman with 2 kids in pajamas. A guy in a suit eating a granola bar like it was his first meal in a week. Life moving on, like always. Meanwhile, I couldn't get that image out of my head. Evan, sitting in my chair, laughing, holding her hand under the table. I saw it when I was leaving. He reached for her, and she didn't flinch. Didn't even try to hide it. The table was full of people we'd known for years. People who'd been at our wedding. People I helped move, or lent money to, or cried with at funerals. And yet none of them, not a single one, stood up when I left. Not a glance. Not a whisper. Just quiet acceptance. Like of course this new man belonged there more than I did. Maybe that was the worst part. Not the betrayal. Not even the replacement. But the erasure. The ease with which they erased me. Well, let them wonder. Let her wonder. Let them all sit around that perfectly arranged dinner table and whisper about why I didn't come back. Let them keep checking my social media and finding nothing. Let her try to unlock my phone and realize she doesn't know the passcode anymore. Let her scroll through her contacts looking for my family, and remember, I never let her get too close to them. A blessing, I see now. Because here's what she didn't know. I've been on the edge for a while. Not suicidal. Not reckless. Just tired. Tired of giving more than I get. Tired of chasing someone who stopped looking back. Tired of paying for a marriage that I was the only one showing up to every day. Last year, I started saving money on the side. Little by little. $20 here, 30 there. Cash mostly. Hidden in a fake book in the garage. I told myself it was for emergencies. Maybe car trouble. Maybe if she finally admitted she was done and I needed to get out fast. Turns out, it's for now. I opened the glove box, took out the envelope stuffed with crumpled bills, and started counting. It wasn't much. Maybe $1,300. But it was enough for me to disappear, at least for a little while. And that's when I made a decision. Not out of rage. Not out of spite. But clarity. I wasn't going back. Not in a few days. Not in a few weeks. Not even to explain. I wasn't going to storm in and demand answers or closure. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing how much she'd crushed me. She wanted to replace me? Fine. Let's see how well she plays house when the man she betrayed suddenly stops existing. By noon, I had parked my car behind a shuttered laundromat off a side road no one would think to check. I left it unlocked with the keys wedged above the visor. I took only the envelope of cash, my ID, and a small duffel bag I kept in the trunk with a change of clothes from my last weekend trip to my brother's cabin. I wasn't even thinking straight. I was just moving on instinct. Like my body knew something my heart hadn't caught up with yet. I walked a mile down the road to a gas station and paid a guy $70 to drive me to the nearest Greyhound station. I didn't tell him why. He didn't ask. He had one eye and a broken GPS, and he played gospel music the entire way. It felt fitting, somehow. The moment I stepped into the station, I turned off my phone and dropped it in the nearest trash can. That phone held years of memories. Text messages I used to reread when Mallory and I were still in love, voicemail recordings of her laugh, vacation photos where I genuinely thought we were happy. Now, it was just a leash. I bought a one-way ticket to Savannah under my middle name. Not because I had any connection there, but because it was far enough to feel like another world and close enough to reach before nightfall. While waiting, I sat with my back to the wall, watching people come and go. No one noticed me. I wasn't Reed the husband. I wasn't Reed the birthday boy. I was just another shadow in transit. By the time the bus pulled in, I had a plan. Not for revenge. Not yet. But for silence. A different kind of punishment. One Mallory wouldn't see coming. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't even block her number. I would let her message me. Let her panic. Let her go through the stages. Confusion, denial, guilt, anger. Let her wonder why the man she humiliated on his own birthday didn't come crawling back, demanding an explanation. Because deep down, I knew she expected that. She counted on me being the weak one, the apologizer, the peacemaker, the fixer. She didn't think I had it in me to leave quietly, to not give her a final scene. Well, I wasn't giving her a scene. I was giving her a vacuum. I reached Savannah just before dark. It was humid and soft around the edges, like the whole city had been soaked in memory. I found a cheap motel near the river walk and paid cash for 3 nights. The room was damp, smelled like lemon cleaner and cigarette ghosts, but I didn't care. I wasn't there to relax. I was there to vanish. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling fan spinning. It made this weak clicking sound, like it wanted to fall apart, but didn't know how. Just like me. Somewhere between exhaustion and adrenaline, I finally passed out. I dreamed of her. Not the Mallory from last night, but the Mallory from the first year. The girl who danced barefoot in our kitchen to music that didn't match the beat. The girl who used to draw hearts in fogged-up mirrors. The girl who cried when I gave her a stupid grocery store bouquet and said no one had ever bought her flowers before. That Mallory was gone, and I hated that part of me still missed her. When I woke up, it was 2:43 a.m. My face was wet. I don't know if it was sweat or tears. Maybe both. I sat up, wiped my eyes, and grabbed the motel notepad. In shaky handwriting, I wrote 3 words. No one's coming. And for the first time in years, that idea didn't terrify me. It thrilled me. Let her go looking. Let them all go looking. From now on, Curtis M. Landon was officially offline. 2 days later, the first ripple finally hit the surface. I was sitting on a rust-colored bench by the Savannah River walk, watching a street magician fumble a card trick, when a voice behind me said my name. Not Curtis, but Reed. My middle name. The one on the ID I used to book the bus. I froze. But it wasn't Mallory. It was my sister, Valerie. She stood there in sandals and a travel-wrinkled dress, her hair pulled back into a messy knot and her eyes rimmed with that kind of anger only family can get away with. "Do you have any idea what kind of chaos you caused?" she hissed, sitting down beside me without waiting for permission. "I flew in from Tampa. Trey's called me 4 times. Mom thinks you're dead in a ditch. Mallory." She paused. I didn't respond, just stared at the water. "She's been calling hospitals," Valerie said. "She filed a missing persons report." That almost made me laugh. She filed it. The woman who brought another man to my birthday dinner, who smiled while he sat in my seat, who didn't bother to follow me out when I walked away like a ghost. "She told you what happened?" I finally asked, voice like gravel. Valerie gave me a long look. She told me her version. That made me look at her. And it's crap," Valerie said flatly. "She said you overreacted to a harmless surprise. That Evan was just a friend from her new Pilates class. That she didn't expect you to get so emotional." I let out a bitter laugh. She replaced me like a fork on the table and expected me to smile. Valerie's jaw clenched. "You want the truth?" Everyone at that table knew something was off. Even Trey. He just didn't say anything. "They all froze when you left. Evan stayed the whole night. Ate your cake. Smiled in the pictures." That did it. That last line. "Ate my cake. Smiled in the pictures." I felt my throat tighten, my hands curling into fists without even realizing it. The cake Mallory had ordered, the one with the fishing rod on it because I used to love fishing with Dad. The one I thought maybe meant she remembered something that mattered to me. I wasn't even gone 2 hours, I whispered, and she was already celebrating with him. Valerie nodded slowly. "That's the thing. She didn't look for you right away. She stayed until the check came. Trey said she seemed annoyed, like you'd made her look bad. Typical Mallory. Always the victim when things didn't go to script." I stood up from the bench, ran a hand through my hair. "I'm not going back." Valerie stood too. "I didn't come here to drag you home. I came to make sure you were alive. And to tell you something else." She paused, then added, "Your name's not on the house anymore." That stopped me cold. "What?" "She transferred it to her name last month. Quietly. I only found out because Mom asked me to check county records. She was worried. Said something felt wrong. I didn't want to believe it, but it's there. In black and white." I sat back down, but this time it felt like falling. So she was planning this. I think she wanted you to walk out, Valerie said, so she could make it look like you abandoned everything. She let the words settle, then added, she's not crying, Curtis. She's positioning. The air around me felt like static. All the love I had for Mallory, the confusion, the heartbreak, the ache, it began to dry up. In its place came something colder. Not rage. Not yet. Just a dangerous calm. Let her position, I said softly. She has no idea what she's just triggered. Valerie raised an eyebrow. What are you going to do? I didn't answer. Not yet. But I knew one thing. Mallory was playing checkers on a board I'd been studying for years. She thought disappearing was my grand finale. She was dead wrong. It was just my opening move. That night, after Valerie left, I sat in that motel room for hours with my thoughts flickering like static. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. The more I thought about it, the clearer the pattern became. Every strange decision Mallory had made in the last year suddenly fit together. The new credit card for emergencies. The locked file drawer in her office that used to stay open. The talk about me not being ambitious enough. She wasn't drifting away by accident. She was repositioning her life without me in it. And my birthday dinner? That was her soft launch. I'd been too naive to see it, too loyal to question her. I used to believe that love meant trust without limits. But love without self-respect isn't love. It's submission dressed as devotion. By 3 a.m., I was pacing, my mind racing in two directions at once. One filled with memories of what we used to be, and one building a roadmap for what came next. I wasn't going back to Knoxville, not to live. But I wasn't going to vanish completely, either. Not yet. Not until she saw what it felt like when every lie she built started quietly crumbling beneath her. I opened the duffel bag. Inside was the notebook I used to keep track of maintenance jobs, the kind where I wrote addresses, contacts, overdue payments. But between the back pages, there was something else, a USB drive wrapped in paper. I'd almost forgotten about it. It held scanned documents from a project Mallory and I had done together years ago, back when she managed small accounts for a real estate firm and I handled the property inspections. One of those files, I remembered, had both our signatures on a business license that had never been deactivated. Technically, we still co-owned a dormant LLC. She didn't even know it existed anymore. And that, right there, was my foothold. I spent the next morning walking the city, finding a small library near River Street with ancient computers and slow internet. I logged in using the LLC information. Everything still worked. Business address, our old home, tax records, linked to her email. I didn't need to hack or steal. All I needed to do was redirect. Quietly, cleanly, legally. I changed the mailing address for future notices to a post office box I opened under the same LLC name. I rerouted the secondary email to one I had just created under an alias. Then I sat back in that library chair, staring at the confirmation message on the screen. For the first time since that dinner, I felt something other than heartbreak. I felt control. Before I logged off, I checked social media. Her accounts were private, but people tagged her in photos from the restaurant that night. And there it was, the proof that every nightmare I'd replayed in my head was real. In the background of one picture, you could see Evan's arm around her chair. In another, they were cutting my cake together. I zoomed in until the image broke into pixels, but I didn't stop staring. Underneath the post, one of her friends had commented, "You two look perfect together." And she replied with a single heart emoji. That was it. No grief. No regret. Just a symbol, small, red, cold. I shut the computer down so hard the librarian looked over at me. I apologized. Pretended the machine froze. But inside, something had clicked. I wasn't going to lash out. I wasn't going to confront her or Evan. No, I was going to be patient. See, people like Mallory don't implode under confrontation. They thrive on it. They feed off drama, twist it, spin it, use it. But silence. Silence is poison to their kind. It leaves them with no narrative to manipulate. They can't perform their victimhood when no one's watching. So I waited. 3 days passed. I stayed in Savannah, blending in, keeping my distance. I walked the pier, listened to street musicians, even smiled at strangers. I was learning what freedom tasted like, quiet, unfamiliar, almost guilty. Then, late one evening, I stopped by the motel front desk to check out early. The clerk handed me a message slip someone had left. No name, no return number, Just 2 words scrawled in sharp handwriting that I recognized immediately. Found you. The ink was slightly smudged, as if the hand that wrote it was shaking. I folded the note, slipped it into my pocket, and smiled for the first time in days. So, she wanted to play after all. Good, because I had finally learned how. I waited until the next morning to return to the motel front desk. The clerk, a guy named Daryl who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, handed me the guest book without a word. I flipped to yesterday's date, pretending to skim. She'd signed in as M. Landon, not Mallory, just the initial. Still playing wife, even after dragging another man into my birthday dinner like he was some kind of prize she'd won. She was in room 213. I was in 108. She hadn't knocked, hadn't called the room, just left that cryptic note like she was setting the stage for a dramatic reunion. The kind where she cries, I crumble, and we both pretend none of it ever happened. But I wasn't in that script anymore. I left the motel before she even woke up. Across town, there was a co-working space I'd found the day before. Bright windows, quiet corners, good Wi-Fi. I paid cash for a day pass and chose a seat near the back, where I could see the door. Then I opened my laptop and got to work. Not petty work. Precision work. I wasn't just going to let her think I vanished. I was going to rewrite the entire ending of her story before she even noticed it was slipping away from her. First, I logged into the LLC dashboard again. This time, I filed a formal change of officer structure. Since I was listed as co-owner, and she hadn't updated anything in years, I had full rights to make administrative edits. With a few keystrokes, I made myself the sole authorized manager. I removed her as a signer on all pending paperwork. I even updated the email records to ensure she wouldn't see anything unless I let her. She wouldn't notice right away. People like Mallory never check the back end. They only look at the surface, the image, the narrative, the way things appear. Next, I sent a packet of paperwork to the post office box under the LLC's name. Inside it, a certified request to audit the business credit line she'd opened months ago in the company's name. I only found it last week, tucked into an old account we'd used briefly in 2021. She'd been using it for dinners, salons, clothes, thousands of dollars under the LLC's banner, which meant she wasn't just morally off the rails. She was now legally tangled. She never expected me to look there. That was her mistake. She thought emotional silence meant weakness. It didn't. It meant strategy. Just before noon, my phone buzzed, a new number. Local area code. I didn't answer. A minute later, a text came in. I'm here. Please talk to me. I didn't respond. She called again. I turned the phone off. Then, an hour later, the front desk at the co-working space called my name. I froze. Every instinct told me to hide, but I didn't. I stood up slowly and walked toward the front, expecting security, maybe even police. But instead, it was a delivery guy holding a thin manila envelope with my name on it. No return address. Inside, a photo. It was from our wedding day. Me and Mallory, barefoot on the beach, laughing over something I can't remember now. Someone, I'm assuming her, had written in small pen along the bottom. We were happy once. Please don't end this like a stranger. That's when I knew she was unraveling, because that picture had been stored in a frame on my nightstand. The one beside the bed I hadn't slept in since I walked out, which meant sometime between filing that missing persons report and finding me here, Mallory had gone home, stripped the frame, and packed it in an envelope like a warning shot wrapped in nostalgia. But she still didn't understand what I'd become. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even heartbroken. I was surgical. And that's when I sent the email. Not to her, but to her job. A formal inquiry, sent from the LLC's legal email address, one I had full rights to, requesting documentation of all freelance consulting Mallory had done using the business name in any capacity. I cited financial discrepancies, referenced potential misappropriation of company resources. I didn't accuse her of fraud, not directly. But I left enough breadcrumbs that any halfway competent compliance officer would at least take a look. I didn't want to destroy her. I just wanted her to understand. You don't gut someone publicly, sit in their chair, slice their cake, and then dare them to disappear. Because if they're smart, and I was, they don't disappear. They wait, and watch, and pull the strings from the quietest corner of the room. 2 weeks later, I woke up with the sun pouring in through a window that didn't belong to my old life. The air smelled like ocean salt and fresh linen. I was still in Savannah, but not at the motel. Not anymore. After everything, After the envelope, the phone calls, the emails she tried to bait me into answering, I'd gone quiet again. Completely. No replies. No reactions. Just silence. And slowly, it had started to work. Mallory's facade cracked faster than I expected. Valerie called me 4 days ago, her voice low and cautious. She said Mallory was freaking out, walking around like a hollow version of herself, lashing out at friends, snapping at people at work. Apparently, someone in compliance had flagged my email and launched an internal review of her consulting contracts. Not an investigation, just questions, the kind she couldn't afford to answer without lying. Valerie asked me if I was happy. I said no, but I was calm, and that meant more. Because for once, I didn't feel like I owed anyone a performance. I wasn't playing husband, or victim, or hero. I was just a man sitting in a quiet rented room, learning what it meant to breathe without waiting for someone else's approval. I hadn't seen Mallory since the night she brought Evan to my birthday. I don't know if they stayed together. I don't know if he stuck around after she fell apart. I didn't check. Not because it didn't matter, but because I finally mattered more. 2 days ago, I went out to Tybee Island. Sat on the shore with my feet in the water and a notebook on my lap. I didn't write anything poetic or profound. I just listed things I missed about myself. The real me, not the man I tried to be to keep her happy. I wrote, I miss fishing in silence. I miss peanut butter straight from the jar. I miss sleeping without checking my phone at 2 a.m. I miss laughing without wondering if she was rolling her eyes behind me. Then I flipped to a new page and wrote, so go find him. That was the turning point. I got a call that night from a storage facility in St. Augustine, a job I'd applied for 6 months earlier when I was considering transferring for better hours. They had a night shift open. Small place. Quiet. No drama. Just keys, cameras, and peace. I took it. I packed my things the next morning, walked down to the same diner I'd first ducked into after the birthday dinner disaster, and left a $20 tip for Shirley, the waitress who gave me space without asking questions. I owed her more than she knew. Before I left the city, I sent one last email to Mallory. Short, cold, but honest. I'm not coming back. Not because I hate you. Not because I want revenge. But because I finally remembered what it feels like to live without pretending. Take care of yourself. Curtis. I didn't sign it with love. I didn't need to. That chapter was closed. And now, I live in a rented studio above a seafood market. And every night, I hear gulls fighting over scraps and boats humming in the dark. It's not glamorous. It's not dramatic. It's real. And it's mine. Sometimes I still think about her. But not with pain. Not even with anger. Just distance. Like a story I read once, and then outgrew. Because in the end, walking out of that dinner wasn't about punishing her. It was about saving myself.